Historic Landmarks Commission, June 8th, 2022. All right, let's start with, roll call, probably.
Yes, thank you. I'll go ahead and take roll call. So today we have Chair Grumbine,
Present?
Vice Chair House,
I'm here.
Commissioner Butler,
Here.
Commissioner Dorden,
Here.
Commissioner Drury,
Here.
Commissioner Lundvik,
Here.
Commissioner Manuel is absent, and Commissioner Uli.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Thanks.
All right, thank you. All right, so let's start with item A, public comment. Any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject within our jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for public discussion. So if there is any public comment in the room, there's speaker slips to fill out. And if you haven't already, then you could do it after. You can fill out your speaker slip after. And otherwise, there's also Zoom public comment.
Yes, thank you, Chair Grumbine. So I'll go ahead and start with virtual public comments. So I don't see any members of the public joining by Zoom. And I haven't received any speaker slips for general correspondence. And we did receive written correspondence from Miss Paulina Kahn and Anna Marie Gott. And so with that, I'll turn it over back to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, thank you. So any members of the public wishing to comment right now on something that's not on the agenda? Yeah, so we'll get to those ones. All right, seeing none, I'll close public comment and on to item B, approval of the minutes of Historic Landmarks Commission meeting May 25th, 2022.
Motion to approve the minutes.
All right, Commissioner. All right, motion by Ulick, second by Commissioner Drury. Under discussion, any edits? Edits to the minutes. Going once, going twice, sold. All right, let's have a roll call vote for,
All right, I'll start with Commissioner Dorden,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lenvik,
I abstain due to absence.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
aye.
Okay, motion passes.
All right. On to item C, approval of the consent calendar for June 8th, 2022.
Motion to approve the calendar.
All right, motion by Commissioner Uli, second by Vice Chair House. Under discussion, or to staff for summary.
Yes, okay. Summary, item A was for 723 Santa Barbara Street. The item was continued indefinitely for project design approval.
Oh, I think microphone. Yeah.
Just really project through the
Okay.
mask.
Okay, so the item was continued indefinitely for project design approval and the architectural historian's evaluation of the project against the Secretary of Interior standards was accepted. And item B was for 2720 De La Vina Street. The decision was for project design approval and final approval, and the reviewer was Vice Chair House.
All right. Any comments, Vice Chair House, before we go to the vote?
Pretty simple.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right. Roll call vote, please.
All right, thank you. I'll start with Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lenvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorden,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
All right. On to item D, announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals. All right. To
Yes,
staff, any?
I have a couple announcements. One, just to let you know, Commissioner Emanuel will be absent from today's meeting. Also, item 4 of today's agenda at 801 Alston Road, which was formerly 2190 Alston Road, has been postponed to our next meeting on June 22nd at the applicant's request. And then I also just want to remind you that the California Preservation Foundation's 2022 Preservation Conference is underway and continues through Friday. And hopefully you have been or will be attending some of the sessions. And just a reminder also that this historic preservation training is required by each of you annually by the California Office of Historic Preservation because we are a certified local government. And that is the end of my announcements. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Vice Chair House.
I have a question regarding the Preservation Conference. So do they know when I'm attending one of these and they report that to you, or do I need to self-report to you? Or
Just self-report to me, and I fill it out on the annual report form that we passed.
And is there a minimum number of,
Just one training.
okay, all right. I've done
But
one.
it's a maximum of 500 hours.
Okay. I'm well on my way.
They leave it up to us, but
What's
they
that?
just want everyone to have some training every year.
All right. Any other questions about that? And also announcements, et cetera, future.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I need to leave
Commissioner
at
Drury.
5:30.
All right. Hopefully, we better be done by 5:30.
Yeah.
Or we have other problems. Okay, any other announcements? I had a question for staff. Having watched the ones that I've missed and seeing and being here in person as well, is there a time that we can have a discussion about a potential hybrid version of screens and at least copies at the meeting, like having a large paper copy, having the applicant bring it, or having them turn it in like they used to. I know they used to turn it in, but they also used to send it all out to us and have a paper packet. And I'm not saying that as an idea, but maybe as an idea of having something here and some side sets for people to look at, because it is hard to review things when only the applicant's controlling the pages real time. So I think it might be, but when is the proper time to be discussing? And is that an offline thing we can do, or do we need to agendize it, or what?
Mr. Chair, we do not need to agendize it. I can say that we're working with City TV to come up with a longer-term strategy as opposed to this current setup, something that would be more in the line of what it is to experience paper plans. But of course, there are costs associated with all of this. So perhaps as an interim, I can go back and talk to other staff, and we can follow up on that.
Okay.
And see kind of timeline. We were going to get a demo and some other things, but it might not be in the immediate future. So we're still working on that. And but I hear you in terms of, well, look into your request.
Okay, great, thanks.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I concur. I think it's important that we get some hard copies in front of us at the meeting.
Yeah.
It's really important. You talk about costs. The cost to me to print out stuff that is on the agenda. I mean, I go through reams of paper, to be able to get stuff out, enlarge it, whatever. And that's very expensive. The minor amount of money that I receive each month from the city for my services probably doesn't cover the paper costs and printing costs. So I think we need to have something on our table in front of us to review.
And to tie to that, so we're not just always complaining. I think
I am.
No, I know. So all of us aren't always complaining. I do want to thank the city for the digital move, which has really helped. And it was already before COVID that it was in the works. And in response to us requesting to be able to see things drawings ahead of time. So I think that was in the works before, and so that allowed it. That is a really nice feature that we can look at a couple days out and kind of beginning to dig through things. So, okay, I won't belabor that anymore. Okay, we'll talk more offline. Okay, any other future agenda items, et cetera, to discuss before we go on to subcommittee reports? All right, let's go on to item E, subcommittee reports. So,
Mr. Chair,
yes, Vice Chair House.
the Plaza de la Guerra Revitalization Committee met last week, and I think largely, correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner Drury, but it was largely focused on art and the role that will play in the plaza design and where it's appropriate and what kind of art. So I won't go into a lot of detail, but that's largely what it was about. And the next and staff is working towards submitting for PRT and getting closer to a formal application.
The only addition I would make, Mr. Chair, is that the Arts Subcommittee was formed, and I was dragooned once again into the artist role as the arbiter. Thank you.
And thank you for both of you serving on your respective roles. All right. Other subcommittee reports? Subcommittee. All right. Okay. Then we'll close item E, subcommittee reports, and on to item 1, which is our continued item. And we're 5 minutes ahead, but that's all legal still, so we'll continue. Miscellaneous action item. This is for city landmark recommendation. So item 1, 1201 Los Alturas, if the applicant wants to come forward. And this is for review of nomination and photographs and public hearing to consider adoption of a resolution to recommend to City Council the city landmark designation of Casa de Cuatro Vistas, including the main house designed in 1919 by Carlton Winslow, FAIA, in the Spanish colonial revival style, the mid-century modern studio designed in 1959 by Edwards and Pittman, and the landscape elements. So, if you would please come forward. Oh, sorry, and to staff first. Yeah.
I have a PowerPoint.
Okay.
Just kind of go over the landmark designation really quickly. As most of you know, I am Nicole Hernandez, the city architectural historian, and I'm just going to present the qualifications of the Quattro Vista, of the Casa de Quattro Vista designation application, and just summarize the minutes from the last hearing and the requests that the commissioners had and how those have been, what has been added to the nomination since that time. So the purpose of this hearing is to review that additional material requested by the HLC on March 16th, 2022, and consider adopting the resolution to recommend the designation of the building as a landmark to City Council, as the final decision for landmarks is at Council. The one request was to document what additions have been made to the building so it's clear whether alterations have impacted the existing structure, meaning the historic integrity of the property, and provide details and accurate site plans showing all site improvements with a north arrow and photo key so the commission can reference where the photographs are taken, and provide complete photographs of all elevations the commission has not seen, and verify that the pagoda is within the parcel's property line. So what was added to the nomination was more narrative description, including more details of the alterations to the 1919 main house and some historic photographs for reference as well. And then a visual packet was prepared by the architectural firm of Britton Jewett, AIA Architecture and Allied Arts, that included site plans, photo keys, and visual outlines of the additions and alterations. So this is the visual packet that was supplied. The applicant did hire this the architecture firm to help with this packet. So they did include, here you'll see the site plan with the main features of the property showing the photo keys, and there is the 1919 sketch of the house, as well as the south elevation, the courtyard, the front elevation, and the pagoda, and the mid-century building from 1959 illustrated on this page. On this page, they color-coded alterations to the property. The light pink would be contributing alterations that contribute to the significance of the building, and the red, non-contributing elements that do not contribute to the significance of the building that might be places for future improvements. And you can see the pink, let me see, can you see this? Yeah, okay, so here you have the south elevation of that wing had a window, a small window here, and they put 3 large windows here, and they enclosed part of the south courtyard for a library and enclosed this open arch with a metal window, and here's the enclosed part of that south elevation. And then on the north side of the house, where these red juts are coming out, these are the kitchen and bedroom additions. These are in the rear elevation, and were found non-contributing. And then on the north, also here where there was a former garage here that was enclosed to be a bedroom, and an upstairs bedroom as well. It used to be just a platform. And those were done in 1955 and found contributing to the significance of the building. When we were at the Designated Nations Subcommittee, they had requested just pointing out significant trees. And this shows the building was actually situated in Oak Grove purposely by the architect. So there's lots of oak groves around, but there's a really significant one between the garage and the mid-century modern studio. There's a big oak next to the roundabout, and there's also a Melaleuca tree, which is a really unique tree next to the pagoda, next to the roundabout, and a Pachyporus graciola. And I wish Justin was here because he can pronounce those better than I. Here they did a legend to show the different kinds of sandstone on the property. There's some really beautiful examples of early ashlar cut sandstone that would date to the original 1919 portions of the property. There's the pier and cap wall railing lining the driveway, and ashlar topped retaining walls, as well as ashlar cut topped benches, and there's sandstone stairs as well as piers. And then you see later forms of sandstone walls that were installed later with just the round rubble stacked walls, which indicate a later period of significance, yet still define the beauty of the property as a whole. They did supply aerials to really illustrate those other elevations because they're really complicated to photograph from the ground due to all the trees. So this is where you can really see the how the north side here was changed in 1955. This was the original garage. And then here you can see the north elevation also with the addition of that kitchen extending out and the other bedroom extending out. And here you can also see this is the front elevation. And I have some comparison photos to show you from the 1924 historic photographs that you can compare. They also supplied the elevations that were completed in 1996 when there were the additions were added, so that you could have a clear elevation. There were no original elevations of the building on record. And they also did, this partial site survey that does show the pagoda clearly within the property line. And this is the 1924 image of the front facade by Carlton Winslow. And I just put a few details here because you can really see how he really deeply recessed the front entrance and had the plank style door with the railing, kind of the turned rails on the top. It really shows Carlton Winslow's knowledge of how deeply recessed things had to be in the style. And then he had these beautiful rejas over the side windows next to the front door that are still there. This is the south elevation from 1924, and you can see here that's that arch that was filled in, and this small window was replaced with the 3 long windows. And they also added the rubble wall here and steps leading to the courtyard. And here again is the window that's filled in that arch and the 3 large windows on that wing and the enclosed courtyard that they added for a library. That was all done in 1955. And finally, for this historic photograph, this shows the rear side of the house before the additions, which were right here. And you can still see in this aerial, here's those 2 gables, and here's the kitchen jutting out that was the addition. So the report found the building meets criterion number 2 associated with lives significant in Santa Barbara. And we went into this deeper in our last meeting, but I'll just summarize. It was Henry Hitchcock, Ina Campbell, McKinley and Francis Hammond Helm, and John Gillespie. And it also meets criterion 3 as the main 1919 house embodies the Spanish colonial revival style designed by master architect Carlton Winslow, FAIA. And the studio from 1959 embodies the mid-century modern style designed by Edwards and Pittman and is significant in its own right as an excellent example of that style. And the property also embodies those distinctive characteristics of a method of construction, which is the unique sandstone walls and elements, especially those ashlar cut rail walls, the piers, the driveway railings, parking, and tables and benches. As with most landmark boundaries, we do the entire parcel to allow for adequate review of any changes for compatibility, with non-contributing features are clearly noted for future reference. And the recommendation is the HLC consider recommending this landmark designation to City Council. And that concludes my summary. And I will hand it
Thank
over
you.
to the applicants.
All right. All right, now, if you want to come,
Please approach.
yeah, come forward, yeah. Yeah, so, oh, there we go, yeah.
Actually, she'll need to use the
Oh, get-
laptop, but here comes another chair.
But it's more historic, traditional.
Okay, good afternoon.
All right. Yeah, welcome. If you would introduce yourselves, and then if you have a total of 15 minutes, you don't need to use it at all, but if you could walk us through both your project and findings, especially, actually, we should probably read the, do we have the minutes from last time. That would
Yes,
probably be good to
I
start
can
with,
pull those
and
up.
then if you can introduce yourselves and kind of walk us through how you answered them.
Yep.
I'm sure a lot of which we
We
just,
timed ourselves to make sure we don't go over time, so
okay, great,
the owners are gonna speak first, and I will speak,
okay,
and the attorney will speak.
okay.
But we have cut it down to 15.
All right, sounds good.
Okay.
So we'll go through the minutes first, just from last time, just so that,
I'm sorry, I have the wrong, I'm not sure if I have it in the PowerPoint. Okay.
if we have them. You know, if we had a paper copy, we just.
Just keep pushing, just keep
Turning.
These 3 slides.
Yeah, that's true. Shut us all down. No lights. Okay, so are we just gonna go with from the PowerPoint, basically? Okay, sounds good. All right, so we asked it from March 16th, we asked it for documents that what additions have been made to the building so it's clear whether any alterations have impacted the existing structure. Provide detailed and accurate site plans showing all site improvements with north arrow and photo key so the commission can reference where the photographs are taken. Provide complete photographs of all elevations which the commission has not seen. And verify that the pagoda is within the parcel's property line. All right, thanks. Okay, so with that, please introduce yourselves and, go through your presentation.
Okay, my name's Yaja McDonough. Thank you for this time to speak. This is just a personal statement that I'm making, Emmett also, and then Femina's going to kind of go through a lot of the
The nitty-gritty?
yes.
Okay, sounds good.
I live at 1201 Los Alturas Road. Emmett and I bought our home in Santa Barbara in 1996 when we moved here from San Juan Capistrano. We chose Santa Barbara because it's a beautiful city with a rich architectural heritage. We love it here. Last weekend, we had dinner at an El Paseo restaurant. We sat outside, directly under the arcade that was designed by Carlton Winslow. Then we went across the street to a performance at the Lobero Theater. These historic buildings are very special and deserve to be preserved for future generations to enjoy. Our home was designed by Carlton Winslow in the Spanish colonial revival style, which is such a distinctive feature of Santa Barbara. It is worth preserving, and so too is the mid-century modern studio. We have maintained all the buildings to the best of our ability, but at some point this property may be sold and will have new owners. Many homes in Santa Barbara, particularly if they have ocean or mountain views, are being bought to be torn down and replaced by a larger, typically 2-story home. We don't want that to happen to our home. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Emmett McDonough. I live at 1201 Loster Terrace Road. Thank you for considering our property as a historical landmark. Before coming to Santa Barbara in 1996, we lived for 16 years in San Juan Capistrano, in a Spanish colonial revival home that was built in 1923. We love the purity of its design and its authenticity. However, after we sold it, it was demolished. When we moved to Santa Barbara, we were able to buy a beautiful house built in 1919 by Carlton Winslow Sr., FAIA, in the same Spanish Revival style. My wife and I were both history majors, and authenticity is important to us. Our house is real. It is an authentic Spanish Revival home. It is not a copy of one. Authenticity is important to why we love our house, even though it doesn't have enough wall plugs. We hope to keep our property within our family. Our eldest son plans to live here and preserve our property for our community. Mr. Hitchcock centered our house with views of both the ocean and the mountains. This house is on the very top of the Riviera. Its multiple views are unique and desirable. If we are unable to keep our property in the family, given the size of our parcel, 2.5 acres, within the city limits, and with its location being on top of the Riviera, if it is ever sold and there's no historic designation, then I believe our property, including the main house and its mid-century modern studio, will be torn down by the new owners, as they will want to build a much larger and newer house in order to maximize its space, location, and multiple views. We ask that our family's property and home be preserved for our city, for Santa Barbara. I also want to say a word about the mid-century modern studio. For me, it is an architectural gem, a diamond within an oak tree grove. It is perfect in every way, with the clarity of its design. This studio is an actual, authentic design. It is not a copy of a mid-century modern structure. I ask you not to let our mid-century modern be destroyed. Please preserve it for our city. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
You want to get in here? Okay.
Okay.
All right.
She's going to help me. Well, good afternoon,
Good afternoon, Ms. Murray.
Chair Grambine and Commissioners. We are really very glad to be back in person. So first of all, I want to thank Commissioner Robert Uli for kindly reviewing the landmark nomination packet before the final version was submitted for this meeting. And to our esteemed city architectural historian, Nicole Hernandez, we want to thank her very much. We could not have done this without her. So, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, I want to tell you that it has taken a small village of applicant teamwork to come up to provide what you directed in your motion from the last meeting in March. I owe much gratitude to the Mr. and Mrs. McDonough for being such good stewards of this property and for not giving up. And so they hired 2 professionals to help us. Jason Stanley from Studio 7 Architecture and Allied Arts of, Britt Jewett firm. He provided the exhibits you saw and photo gallery showing all of the features on the property, complete with north arrow pointers on most of the pages. As you know, that was one of the comments. They also hired Thomas Pluck to do professional high-quality photography, including drone aerial photos of the property to showcase the exhibit so that you can understand the property. So we go right to the main house, and that would be, let's see, I just say forward.
Oh, there's use the mouse, maybe?
Oh. I just want to change the page to page, oh, that's the one, this one. There you go. So, oh, sorry. That's okay. I just want to, since you've seen most of it, I just want to go to the main ones I'm addressing. And mostly I'm addressing your motion from the last meeting. And so for the main house, as you can see, there are site plans with color-coded legends, photographs showing contributing and non-contributing alterations to the main house. And it is astounding that for 103 years life of this house, there are only two non-contributing elements, and they are both located in the back. You can see them up there, the kitchen and that little room.
And if you want with the mouse, you can circle them or, you know,
Okay, so
point to them or
yeah,
whatever.
there's the kitchen and there's the room.
That's the kid.
This is the kitchen and that's the bedroom. Okay, and these are we studied this and they are contributing features. These were done in 1955 by Edwards and Plunkett. In the report, we determined that they were all very much within the context of the house, following its footprints, and that's why we argue that they are contributing elements to the landmark. And then, let's see. Those are all clear to you, so I'm going to then go on to the next one. Oh, sorry. So the studio building. I just want to say that in addition to the motion items, I addressed other relevant comment made by various commissioners. And one example is Commissioner Justin Manuel had asked, quote, "Is it typical and okay to have two separate items, meaning two different styles of buildings from two different periods be designated together?" And the answer is yes, they can. The mid-century modern studio is not seen from the main house at all. And on page 17 in the report, second paragraph from the top, we discuss the relevance of compatible, harmonious spatial relationships. This is all part of the Secretary of Interior standards, where two different styles of architecture, two different buildings can coexist without competing with each other. So that was that. And then you have seen the significant trees that Nicole reviewed. And then the stonework shows the location of all the different types of stonework, which, as you know, is characteristic not only of this property, but also of the Riviera area. And we have visited this property so many times, and the stonework that you see are intact. They are in great condition and still maintaining their craftsmanship, most of them since 1919. Okay, the Japanese pagoda. Okay, there it is. I have a lot to say about Japanese pagoda, but since we are sort of short of time, and I want our lawyer to also say some things. In closing, I believe that our team has thoroughly met the three provisions of your motion, and we ask that in your deliberations, you would agree with us in celebration that Casa de Cuatro Vistas property is worthy of a landmark designation. Thank you very much, and we're here to answer all the questions you may have, whatever we can, and if you want me to talk about the pagoda, I would. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
No, it's okay. If you, no, we have about
Okay,
15
are you-
minutes. Do you want to say something? If you have the time, go ahead.
You-
This is your chance.
Come say hello.
Chair. Good afternoon. I'm Janet McInnes. Good afternoon, Chair.
Good afternoon.
Irving and Commissioners. Briefly, I sent you a letter to address comments that had been submitted the last hearing, and I will trust that you've read it, and I'm here to answer any questions. We learned of a new letter yesterday submitted, and Mr. Green, Mr. and Mrs. Green submitted a letter, to which I have a brief comment. I have considerable experience with city archives and files and knowing the building files, and I have spent a lot of time on this property in the files, and again today reviewed the files. There's absolutely no evidence or any reason to be insecure that any alterations to the main house or to anything on the property were not documented, approved, permitted, etc. This as you probably know, in the very early days, we had ledger books, so we didn't have permits. It was into the 30s before we actually had permits. And indeed, in my years, it's a rare property to find so much documentation of a 103-year-old property with multiple structures and people living in it, using it, from the day it was built. So I would just strongly encourage you, and I'll trust that staff can confirm this. We have provided the archive support, the wonderful photographs that the McDonoughs found in their archives in their attic. Mrs. Campbell saved pictures. Mr. Hitchcock saved pictures. Miss Gillespie saved pictures. This house is beautifully documented, and I really encourage you to trust that record. It's rare that we see such a well-documented file. And I just want to make a comment. It's also wonderful, and I hope not forgotten, that your former commissioner, Don Sharp, has urged you to grant this landmarking status. And someone I think is our greatest historical resource, Mary Louise Days, she has supported and urged you to support this. And with that, I'm here if there are any questions, but I hope we've provided enough information. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, so if that concludes the presentation, we'll go now to public comment. Any member of the public wishing to comment on this item, if you're in the room, please fill out a speaker slip after you come up. And if you're not, we'll start first with virtual, so.
Yes, thank you, Chair Grumbine and Commissioners. So I'll go ahead and start with virtual public comment, and then we'll move to in-person. So if any member of the public joining by Zoom would like to speak on item 1, please raise your hand to indicate that you would like to speak, and I will call on you. All right, so I don't see any hands raised for this item, so I'll move to in-person public comment. So I have received one speaker slip from Miss Beverly Johnson Trials. So if you would like to please come up to this podium right here, you can speak. Thanks.
Oh, and I think now that we're back in person, we have an official speaker podium. So we're moving up in the world.
I'll still take off
Oh,
my
it's okay.
muzzle. I'm assuming I have 2 minutes?
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll have 2 minutes, and go right ahead.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Beverly Johnson Trial, and my husband and I live on High Ridge Lane. I would like to make 2 points. Number 1, what is the point of historic landmark designation if the home isn't visible to the public? How does that benefit our community? Do the owners propose to remove several beautiful old trees in order to make the house visible? 2, there are several homes nearby that could have been designated as landmarks, but were not. 1301 Las Alturas was the home built by Adam Ott of Ott Hardware, a well-known and important store in Santa Barbara history. The home was torn down and replaced by a beautifully designed home. The first home built on High Ridge Lane was commemorated by its name, the Sundial House, and the words Skyland on 2 pillars at the entrance of the street. It was torn down and replaced by a lovely home. The property situated on Green Ridge, 1233 Mission Ridge, had 2 buildings that had been part of a large estate. The owner was successful in persuading this commission not to give the property a historic designation, and a striking home now stands there. These homes added to the property values of the surrounding properties and subsequently brought in much-needed higher real estate taxes than the previous homes had done. The argument has been put forth that the owners of the 1201 home want to preserve it after they have sold it. That reminds me of a comment made by a prominent real estate agent who used to live on High Ridge, sold that home, and now lives close by. The home was torn down and replaced by another home. When the wife complained, "Look what they did to our house," her husband wisely answered, "It isn't our house anymore." Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other public comment?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine and Commissioners. So I haven't received any more requests to speak on this item. So I'll go over written correspondence. We did receive written correspondence from Janet K. McGinnis on behalf of the McDonoughs. And we did receive written correspondence from Larame Green. So with that, I'll turn it over back to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, thank you. All right, so we'll bring it back to the commission now for questions. Is there any questions from commissioners about the report? Is that missing anyone?
I have a question of staff.
Okay.
We talk about a house qualifying because a person of some significance in the history of Santa Barbara lived there. If that house was greatly modified, does that still make that house qualified to be a landmark or a structure of merit?
All right.
Thank you,
Ms. Hernandez?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Typically, when you do the criteria for association, it should look like it did when that person was associated with it.
Thank you.
You can confirm, Commissioner Uli, that?
I would say that the association of the person who lived there is part of the history of the property, and that's why it's important, not necessarily the changes that came after they left the property. It's their association with the property that makes it significant.
Well, so the house could be gone, torn down, and the property still has a relationship to the person that lived there, even though the house is gone.
Yeah, it could. I mean,
Sometimes it is.
sometimes it is.
This is the spot where
Yeah.
so-and-so.
Sounds like
A great example
died-
is
died or lived.
there was a hotel in Los Angeles that was demolished where Robert Kennedy died. The site is still important because he died there. The building no longer exists.
But is it a structure of merit or a historic site?
A site.
All right, good questions.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Drury.
Yes, I'd like city historian to address, if you can, the point brought up by the speaker who's at the podium.
Which
In other words,
point?
why- which is-
Regarding why
why is it
designate
important?
estates? Why it is important to
Yeah.
designate, even though
Yes.
we've designated quite a few estates, and I think you all have done two site visit to buildings that are estates recently that are designated for their properties. But just because they're not completely open to the public right now on a daily basis, their architecture or features are really part of our heritage. We were a very a destination for a lot of wealthy people from the East Coast, and these were their homes. And we have a long history of designating estates. I can think of the big yellow house on the hill that was owned by the Montgomery Ward family, the Black Estate. We just acknowledge them as part of the fabric of our entire city, even though not everyone gets to see them present all the time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
All right, Vice Chair House.
I'll follow up with a more specific question. So visibility of the house from a street is not a criterion for designation as a landmark?
It is not one of our criteria.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions before we roll into comments? All right, comments? Does anyone want to kick us off with some comments? And obviously, I think our key things to address are the new information or satisfaction with the information or thoughts on what we asked for from the previous and what we now received, and then what that makes you want to conclude or how you're feeling about that, whether it's landmark worthy for designation. And actually, just for clarity, for the public's sake, so the way in terms of designations or being on the list works is, so you can be a contributing structure to the list, and that can be put on by Ms. Hernandez as the city historian. They can put that on. We used to call it the potentials before, but now we've shifted. So it can be contributing to be an actual structure of merit, which is the next level up, This commission has to designate you as a structure of merit, which means that all the key characteristics and all the things addressed by a historic structures report get weighed in when you go to do an alteration to that property. In general, that's sort of a general way of thinking about it. And then the highest level is designated as a landmark. So the main difference, the biggest difference between a landmark designation as a historic resource is that landmarks are the only things that can't be demolished. So historic resources can be demolished with a certain process, in theory, but historic landmarks cannot. So we also treat them with more care because they're at the highest level of our city's historic designation. So just as sort of some background information. All right, so who wants to weigh in on their thoughts on both what we've seen today that's new and what they're thinking in terms of worthiness?
Mr. Chair, I'll start it off.
Commissioner Jordan?
The last time we looked at this, I was concerned that the information was not complete, and therefore the evidence that I needed to make a decision was not there. I no longer feel that way. I'm very satisfied with the information that's been provided to us this time. I think it does answer all the questions I had. Also, a comment, it is routine across the country that private homes that are not visible have been designated, not just here, but it's routine across the country. I'll also make a comment because an issue has been raised about the potential financial impact of designation on others in the neighborhood. And I'll say that to my knowledge, and I try to do my own research on this, the literature on the financial impact of designation does not support that concern. Also, in terms of the house being a combination of 1919 and then a mid-century modern, historic properties are not ice cubes. They're not frozen in time. They have a history, and part of what makes them valuable is that history. So I have no problem with the fact that there is a 1919 Spanish colonial revival and a mid-century modern house on the same property.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Jordan. Who wants to go next? Commissioner Drury?
You saw that.
I saw the microphone move.
That wasn't fully formed in my mind. Yes, I support this designation wholly, and I really appreciate the work that you've done to research the needs that we had to form a proper decision. I'm sorry this seems to be a bit of a contentious issue on the top of the ridge. I hope it doesn't resolve itself with gunfire, but the argument was put forth that why would a house that you can't see from the road be a designatable resource? I think it's because it's part of the library and part of the collective history of the architecture of Santa Barbara. And I think for that very reason, only that very reason, it needs to be protected as best we can. And this is worthy, certainly, of a landmark status. I support it completely. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Drury. Commissioner Lenvik, do you want to go or do you want to hold off?
No, I'll
Okay.
speak. I've thought a lot about this project, and I don't believe it rises to the level of historic structure. I think it would well fit into the category of a structure of merit. But I don't agree with the staff's comment that the property rises to a high level of historic integrity. I mean, that's a statement the staff makes. And I think there have been too many compromises made with regard to additions and changes on this building to say that it is retains a high level of historic integrity. So I would not support this as a landmark, but would support it as a structure of merit.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to go here?
Mr. Chair, I would ask another question. Other than the higher standard of care in reviewing a request for landmark designation, what other criteria are there that would put something into worthiness of being designated as a landmark instead of just a structure of merit?
Well, that's been asked quite a bit. Oftentimes, our landmarks qualify for more criteria than our structures of merit. You've seen a lot of structures of merit that are houses without an architect, like a craftsman style house, even though they were great, part of our historic fabric, they're not designed by an architect. They don't have as many of the pure sense of the style. It's pretty much the commission's discretion. We don't have an extra criteria for a landmark. It's just the extra step of going to council. And the other main difference is that landmarks cannot be demolished. Even if they go through CEQA, our ordinance says they can't be demolished.
But does this project check more boxes than your typical structure of merit?
It has the Carlton Winslow's design, and I think a good part of it, it still conveys this, the hand of Carlton Winslow, and he's really one of our master architects from his work dots our city.
Thank you.
But, Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Commissioner Lemick?
to add to that response, yes, Carlton Winslow designed the building, but it has been compromised by several additions or changes to the building over time. So you can say that this is a good example of Carlton Winslow's work. And I think even some of the additions are, are marginal. I mean, you look at the roof, and the roof has got a new tile on it in certain areas, and the original tile in other areas. So the integrity of Carlton Winslow's work has been compromised by the additions and the changes, and I think that is what degrades its integrity.
Okay. Since we're rolling on that comment, I mean, I think it's not a pristine example by any means, but it certainly has a strong amount of Carlton Winslow esqueness to it, and enough that it seems like it is it is, at least in my mind, crossing that threshold, but it is definitely in the sort of gray area of whether it qualifies, because it's not this pristine thing. So, but the pieces that were additions, there's only two that are really non-contributing, and I think that's a fair analysis. When you infill a plaster arch with a window that can be reversed pretty easily, it's not the most, there's a lot worse things, renovations that usually happen than the ones that have happened with this. So, any other?
Yeah,
Commissioner
Mr.
Butler?
Chairman, I would agree with that last comment. One of my concerns from the last visit was what was contributing and non-contributing being clearly designated, and what the proportion or the ratio between that and the existing original construction was. Thank you for outlining that per our request, and I think that answered my concerns, and I would support the designation.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Uli?
I guess I'm last.
Vice Chair House hasn't officially,
All right.
he's playing a bit smart.
Yeah, he's playing a close game. My first and general comment is thank you for doing the exhibits. I think they really do help. But my general comment about exhibits is that having to hire a cadre of professionals to document this stuff can be a barrier for future nominations to reach us. And since we're trying to encourage nominations, my belief is if we follow the National Park Service standard of sketches that are appropriate, scaled appropriately, not necessarily done by a professional, but identify the resources and identify the information that needs to be presented before the commission to make a decision, is just as good. So just putting a flyer out there that you don't have to hire, a half a dozen professionals to help you do this. Second, I think the threshold of going from a listed property to a structure of merit to a landmark has everything to do with the percentage of integrity of the property from its original design. The less integrity, the lower on the list it is. Higher integrity, the higher on the list it should be. And in my opinion, the two non-contributing elements of this building do not knock it, in my mind, knock it out of the realm of landmark status, because the impact is actually fairly minor. When windows are replaced, arches are infilled, much like you said, Mr. Chair. The Department of Interior standards suggest that if it is reversible, then it's not an impact to the resource. If the side of the building was torn down or demolished that incorporated the arch, that's a little more challenging to reverse. But if it's reversible and you can't really tell the difference between the prior and the post, then that's not an impact in my mind. And third, there are not many surviving examples of Carlton Winslow's work in Santa Barbara. There are a few, but not many. That, in my mind, causes this particular resource to rise to a level of a landmark because there are not many around. To the point that you can't see this property, I suppose, if you're a historian or an architectural buff or somebody visiting the town and you knew this house was there, I bet you could stop and ring the doorbell and you'd get to see the house. I don't think, obviously it's a piece of private property. And you can't see it unless you're visiting Google Earth or have a drone. But that's not a criteria to limit its designation. Its importance is based on its design, its integrity, and its historical fabric. And so I can support this nomination because of that.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Woolley. Vice Chair House, down to you.
Well, keep it simple. I appreciate all the very thoughtful comments, and I will support the designation.
All right. Similarly, I feel the same. So it looks like the majority are supporting it. Does someone want to make a motion?
Did you reach for your microphone?
I'll make a motion to designate.
Yes, and the language. Let's see. Do we have language for it or no?
So we're looking for a recommendation to City Council?
Yes.
The adoption of the resolution
Yes.
to recommend to City Council.
It's the adoption. Yeah.
So I recommend that we recommend to City Council
Yep.
that this be designated.
And I will second that motion.
All right. Motion by Commissioner Jordan, second by Vice Chair House. Under discussion. Any discussion?
In particular, I think we just referenced Resolution 2022-01.
I meant to say that.
Yeah.
Are you sure 01, not 02? No, I'm just kidding.
It's your first designation of the year.
All right. All right. Any other discussion? All right. We have a roll call vote, please.
Yes, thank you. So I'll start with Commissioner Butler,
Yes?
Commissioner Lundvik,
No.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
All right. Thank you. And thank you to the applicant for doing, and all the professionals for doing such a great job. It was an
Yeah.
incredibly good presentation.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Plus, we got to see Miss Murray.
Yeah, that's true.
Thank you very much.
That's a
Good to
treat.
see you as well. All right, we are on to item 2. So this is a continued item. This is a pre-application consultation review for 222 East Cannon Perdido. The project site is located within the El Pueblo Viejo district, within 100 feet of a designated city landmark, eligible for listing on the National Register of Historic Places, and a structure on the city's historic resource list. The project proposes to construct a new 3-story residential apartment structure comprised of 27 apartments, applying the city's average unit density high priority housing overlay standards. The building is approximately 20,000 square feet and 39 feet in height. Parking will be provided in a garage structure on the east side of the driveway using a puzzle lift system to accommodate 19 parking spaces. 6 surface parking spaces, including 2 van-accessible EV stalls, are provided on the west side of the driveway for a total of 25 parking spaces. A trash recycling enclosure structure is proposed on the east side of the driveway, adjacent to the surface parking. The existing commercial office building will remain unchanged. This is a one-time pre-application consultation review. No final appealable action will take place at this meeting. Project compatibility findings would be required for project design review approval. The project was last reviewed on May 11th, 2022. So welcome. And I think we're going to have some comments from staff, and then as well, I'll probably read the what's it called, the comments from last time. Yeah, minutes, comments. And then we'll turn it over to you all for your 15-minute presentation.
All right. Thank you, Chair Grumbine. This is a pre-application returning for a second concept review for an AUD project. And just to remind you of the process, when a formal application is submitted, AUD projects are required to have an initial concept review by the appropriate design review body, which in this case is the HLC, because the site is located in the El Pueblo Viejo Landmark District. And then they would go to Planning Commission for another concept review. The Planning Commission would comment on project consistency with the city's general plan, as well as the proposed design and improvement of the project. And then the project would come back to the HLC for a decision, as this body is the decision maker. And you can use the comments and recommendations from the Planning Commission in your deliberations. So I just wanted to remind you of that process. And Allison DeBusk is here for the project as well, and she has some comments for you too.
All right. Do you want to go now, Ms. Busk? Or do you want to wait till later?
Yeah, I will go now. Although some of my comments do relate to the comments that you made about the project in the last review, I just wanted to reiterate that parking is not within the purview of the HLC. The project is located in the Central Business District, and so the residential units that are proposed do not require any parking, and no parking is being proposed. And the office parking has a requirement of 1 space per 500 square feet, and so the project will be required to comply with that. And also, the city does have access and parking design standards, and that those include standards for parking lifts, and so the project will be reviewed using those. Some of the standards about parking lifts do include appropriate maneuverability, loading areas, and also the types of uses that they're acceptable for or appropriate for. There are certain uses where you would want a valet because it's a short-term type of use, and so it would not be appropriate to have those users using the lifts. However, this is an office which is slightly different, where the people working in the office are there for a much longer duration of time. So it's a use that would be appropriate for lifts. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so why don't I read through the minutes? I know it was a long one. I mean, it was. Yeah. Was I there? Yes, you were. I was not there actually, but I did watch the video afterwards, and I did want to address Commissioner Lenvik for saying that if I was there, I would have told him to shut up by now. And I would say that that's not true. I would not have used that language.
He was testing.
All right.
But said it in so many words.
Yeah, I don't have to go there. So, all right. So the commission's comments were Commissioner Drury stated that he would encourage the applicant to reconsider the parking and provide more generous parking off-street as this project is located in a busy part of town. Commissioner Jordan stated he encourages the applicant to work with Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation to ensure protection and access to the critical archaeological site. He recognizes it's not in the purview of commission to assess the number and configuration of individual units, but the HLC does routinely assess the impact of building size, bulk, and scale of the project in relation to the site and surrounding neighborhood. When he asked himself the question, why does this building have this size, bulk, and scale, the answer seems to be because the AUD program encourages greater density. However, greater density is a strategy, not a goal. The goal is to encourage workforce and affordable housing. He wonders if 450 square foot of studio apartments are a viable solution for the need for workforce housing. There are hotels that have larger rooms in the city. If the project is built, we lose the size, bulk, and scale of the existing area around the Presidio. He has trouble saying that the local workforce benefits from this project. He recognizes the dilemma the architects and the developers face. State housing mandates privilege quantity over quality. State mandates and AUD overlays make this kind of high-density, small unit development inevitable, but it does not make it right. Commissioner House stated that he concurs with Commissioner Jordan. He recognizes the need for housing. Former HLC Commissioner Mahan stated in the past that this is a much better use of parking lot than for parking cars, and Vice Chair House agrees. He was very comfortable with the condo project proposed, but is uncomfortable with this project. He is concerned with the limited amount of space between the fourth-story element and the existing office building, which creates a canyon effect. He wished the project was not striving to fit in as many units, but the commission cannot limit the number of units to control mass, bulk, and scale. Anything that the applicant can do to reduce the mass, bulk, and scale would be appreciated. The third floor would have volume ceilings and reduce the plate height on the third floor could have volume ceilings and reduce the plate height on the third floor. Generally, he is not comfortable with the mass, bulk, and scale of the project. This is in good hands architecturally, and he looks forward to a formal presentation. Commissioner Lenvik stated that the project is imposing itself on the Presidio historic structures. It is imposing itself unrealistically to the detriment of the historic resources in the area. He has a difficult time getting behind this project for that reason. He does believe that there is protection in the law that would protect the historic features of the city, but he's not seen that in this project. When he looks at the plan of the project and sees that there are only 3 stories facing the Presidio, but that there is also rooftop use proposed, that is essentially a 4th story. That use and elevation at that height is really imposing itself on the quiet use of the Presidio. He has a tough time accepting this as an appropriate mass and bulk for this area. It is imposing itself on the existing office building, neighborhood parking, and is doing an injustice to the community with the claim that the project is providing housing. This is not an acceptable project as presented so far. Commissioner Uli stated that he agrees that it is impossible to divorce the land plan arrangement from the vertical arrangement of the building that follows. There is a synergistic dynamic here. Those are some good point words there. He cannot support the bulk of this building. He is troubled by the reliance on the mechanical parking system for the office building that is not practical. Mechanical parking systems work well when they are managed, but he does not see this system being practical, and the result will be parking impact in the street. People are impatient, and he does not see this being a practical solution. Parking will be a real issue for this project. He is not comfortable with the 4th floor. The commission does not have purview over how many units there are, but they do have purview over the design of the building and the bulk of the building. His view would be that the project needs to be lower and less bulky. The solution would be up to the artistry of the architect, but until that happens, he cannot support this project. And that is the longest set of minutes I've ever read.
And Mr. Chair, thanks go to our recording secretary
Yeah,
for
I want to thank the
incredible
secretary as well.
transcription.
A job well done.
All right. So with that, I'll turn it over to you to please introduce yourselves. You'll have 15 minutes to present the project, and please address all those. I'll make one little note on parking, because everyone is talking about parking as we're beginning this discussion. And watching the video, it is in one way important that we note when we see an issue like parking or a problem potentially for the site, but at the same time, we also need to make sure that we clearly stay within those portions that we are supposed to be reviewing, because otherwise it looks like we're just overstepping and doing whatever, making calls on things that we actually don't have that it isn't our job to actually make calls on. And so parking is an important discussion, and I'd encourage those who do feel that it is, that it's going to be more and more of a problem, that we take it to City Council and to other discussions as opposed to putting it on applicants during these meetings. So.
I suspect that's why the city attorney is here, to keep the bumpers on.
No, not at all.
She just misses us.
All right. So with that, if you would introduce yourselves.
Sure.
And
Trish Allen with Suzanne Elledge, Planning and Permitting.
And I'm Christine Perone with Cornell Collective, the architect, and I'm here today with our summer intern, Kate. So an impressionable young architect mind, please do not damage her.
May choose a different career.
That's right. Don't we want to scare her away? Yeah.
She'll be encouraged by this. I just wanted to tag staff's comments. Ms. Burkhart went over the process, and I'm not sure if I'm close enough to this microphone to be heard. We are here for a one-time concept review for the second time. And this is a revived project. You did see a condo project that went through the process, and we received your comments, I believe, last August. Oh, time flies. We did file a pre-application with staff, so staff have looked at our project and have worked with us and given us feedback on all land use issues. I'll just summarize that. And as Ms. Burkhart mentioned, our next step following this review would be to the Planning Commission for their concept comments. And certainly, we would be coming back here for consideration project design approval, but we have to file our formal application and have staff review our application and deem the application complete in order to come back to this commission for that action. So having said that, we're not at a point for our technical analysis that would include updates to the Phase 2 Historic Structures Report that this commission has seen, reviewed, and accepted related to the other project, so that will be updated. And further, we brought to you an extended Phase 1 archaeological assessment and also an addendum to that, and that was reviewed by this commission and accepted last August. With that, we do have, it is our intent to carry forth those protection measures, details about how to construct and preserve the outer defense wall that does come onto this property. I know it's very important to this commission, to us too, to continue to work with the Trust for Historic Preservation. We have talked to them, they're here, and they did reach out to us this week, but we needed to come here first, and then we will be talking to them as we work on that, I guess, addendum to or revised addendum to the Phase 1 archaeological report. And then just, I think we mentioned this last time, that this project does provide an increased setback or buffer from that outer defense wall. And I think Christine will touch on that shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, Trish. So yeah, thanks. So in those, the lengthy minutes, there were quite a few very good suggestions among a lot that maybe not so relevant. But we did act on those, and we did appreciate them. And I do believe coming to this board or to this commission and to the review boards always does make for a better project. So that said, I'm going to kind of walk you through our changes. And so here's the site plan, and some of the things you'll notice, and just a reminder, we still have that red outline is the prior project that you had reviewed and its relationship to the outer defense wall. And you can see here that we've actually improved the relationship to the outer defense wall. The red encroached closer to, and that had been an acceptable distance from it, from your prior review of that project. So we think we have made this an improvement. We have acted on the request. It was a good observation that the two buildings were too close, and so you see that we've really increased that distance between the two buildings and kind of reorganized a bit, opened up this front to get a lot more kind of a green, landscaped real sense of entry to what is the new entry of the project. It's located right here, kind of across from the office building. And we've kept the front here is largely stayed the same. I don't think the commission had any comments about that. And in the plans, you're going to see here we eliminated the entire fourth floor except for the roof deck, which given the observation about its proximity to the outer defense wall, we did flip it so it's internalized to the site now. And I'll show this more in the elevation and section, but there was another good observation about changing these to true roofs and dropping the plate height so we could drop the height of that building adjacent to the outer defense wall. So that dropped about 1.5 feet. And then with that, the distance between the two buildings, it's also no longer has that 4-story, so it's a 3-story to a 3-story or smaller in between those two buildings. The other thing we did, in studying this is opened up this corner. This deck had been internal, and we realized we should put that on the corner and really kind of make a softer edge there, more open edge relative to that elevation. And so here are the current elevations. The garage has stayed largely the same, and the street frontage has stayed largely the same. Please ask me any questions if you want me to address any of those issues. But going through, this is the, west facing, facing the outer defense wall. And we still have, and I've always liked this kind of, feels rustic, European, old village kind of angle to this building that we've had it always, and I just want to remind the commissioners, I think that's a really nice feature to this building. We still have the upper decks that kind of help soften this edge, so a lot of this feels like a two-story with a three-story deck, and that lives all the way back to the prior approved project that you had seen and had felt positively about. And here's that corner that we opened up, and you can see, I think you can see that this roof has dropped a bit. And here's the elevation facing, that's facing the parking lot. And so we've kind of created these two little identities here with a deep break in between. And with that kind of rustic feeling that was starting to happen, I started playing with asymmetries and instead kind of pushed a mirror door off to the side and did something central here and just kind of started playing with these parts to make this feel more rustic, I think was my goal. And here you can see that entry, which we're going to match the stone wall at the front and clad that in stone and make that kind of a real compelling feature that you'll see and experience from the street. And it's just a nice little two-story element. And here's the elevation kind of facing the existing office building. And that's outlined in red still as it was before. I think you missed that line there. And here's that sense of entry. This is down to 3 stories. And I think we've just been playing and developing the fenestration on this one. And there's some detailing we're starting to add. There's a plaster pierce work detail here. And finally, this is the last elevation, which no longer has the 4th floor, of course. And here's that kind of corner balcony deck. And the sections. And here you can really see here's the flat roof, and here's the dropped plate that faces the outer defense wall side. And distance between the two buildings. And I know you've seen these before. With the prior project, the survey had been done with LiDAR, so we had this point cloud that accurately represents all the surrounding buildings, not the new one at 800 Santa Barbara, but still has the old one there. But you can kind of get a sense again of the scale, the larger scale buildings that are to the north of us and across the street, some of the larger scale buildings, and why we feel this really relates. But do I need to zoom in? Is everybody okay?
Sure, actually, zooming in would be good.
Okay. I can never quite tell what the,
You can just press the Z key and then you can do a marquee around it.
oh, okay. Okay. And here is looking, at the project. Here's our new garage building, the trash building, and the adjacent structure. And I know these are a little funny looking, but they are completely accurate. Looking down the driveway, the office building, our building, and obviously the trees are kind of faded out, but those are solid trees. Those beautiful paper barks. Oops, uh-oh. And then just kind of keeping on Canyon Perdido, looking across the parking lot. Here's our new building existing, and again, the trees are faded out. And this is looking from Panino's parking lot, kind of like really gives you a sense of the garage, how low it is relative to the building behind it. And this is not from De La Guerra Street. That wasn't correctly noted. This is kind of in the much closer in. It's about 100 feet into that parking lot, looking at our site. So I think we're 100 feet away here, and I think from De La Guerra, you're about 200 feet away.
Is it worth zooming in on the?
I'll get there. Okay. Yeah. Is this Control 0? Yeah, excellent. And I know there was a couple other requests, but I think, I will just go to the rendering here. which gives you a really good sense of what this is going to be, the experience of this on the street with here's the little trash enclosure, our new garage. And I think what I like is the sense of this starts to really invite people in and through with the relationship of that mirror door and this stone-clad entry. And there is, right over here, an adorable little stone-clad arched entry with wood gate, but you can't quite see it. And with that, I think that that completes my presentation.
Okay. And since we don't have paper copies, can you flip through the rest of the pages just so that they're officially done?
Oh,
Yeah.
sure. Controls here.
It's not 28, that includes the photos.
So this is a planning sheet referencing open space and things like that. Existing conditions, existing office building floor plans, site, floor plans, elevations, sections, point cloud, and then the photos. These are the photos that are just for, they're on record.
Great.
Uh-huh.
All right. Thank you. Does that complete your presentation? All right. Thank you. So now we'll open public comment. Any member of the public wishing to comment, please fill out a speaker slip. And if there's more than one, you can fill out while you're waiting. But if the first person hasn't, then they can just fill it out after. But we're going to start with virtual public comment.
Yes, thank you, Chair Groenbein and Commissioners. So I'll go ahead and start with virtual public comment. If any members of the public joining by Zoom would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand to indicate that you would like to speak, and I will call on you. All right, so I don't see any hands raised via Zoom for this item, so I'll move to in-person public comment. I do have 3 requests to speak. So I'll start with Mike Imwali, and then move to Ann Peterson, and then lastly, John Dordan. So if you'd like to come up to this podium by my desk, and you will have 2 minutes to speak.
Great.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Mike Imwali, Associate Executive Director of the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation. Thank you for the opportunity to comment this afternoon. We appreciate the removal of the 4th floor, the overall reduction of size, bulk, and scale, and the reduction of the overall height of the building. We notice there's a 620 square foot reduction in the ground floor. And it would be nice to see that reduction in the footprint added to the buffer between the archaeological resource and the ground floor of the residences, rather than create extra space between the residential building and the existing commercial building. I know it's out of the purview of this commission, but the lack of parking is a huge economic factor on the neighborhood, including the 4 commercial parking lots owned by California State Parks within a block of this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm Ann Peterson, the Executive Director of the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation. And I did want to confirm, as the applicant said, that we did reach out with a request to revisit some earlier creative and open-ended conversations about how to protect and provide public access to the archaeological resource. And I note that Commissioner Dordan did mention that in the minutes. It was included of the last meeting that that should be a priority. We did have initial conversations with the applicant for the first project at the very beginning when the project was at the street end of the property. And we were talking about very creative ideas about having a paseo or even access from the state park property, which is adjacent to a significant amount of this project. And when the project was moved to the back and the resource was then included in a private backyard, those conversations sort of ended because it seemed inevitable that this was not an accessible space. So this new project is still bulked up against the resource rather than the front of the property. We would like to revisit those conversations in an open-ended and creative kind of way so that we can see how we could get people back there, for one thing, maybe from Santa Barbara Street through the state park property, but also how we can help protect that resource. And we would, like to be involved in taking responsibility for that in the long run. Is that is part of the mission of the trust. So hopefully we can have that meeting soon and work forward together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Grumbine, fellow commissioners. My name is John Dorden, and as most of you probably know, I am a member of the Board of Directors at the Trust for Historic Preservation. However, that's not why I'm here today. I'm here as myself, as a grandfather, and an interested citizen of Santa Barbara in the history here. I was drawn by the history here. I find my interest in the history, of course, got me involved with the Trust and other places in town. But what I have learned that this particular structure, what we're talking about, and the historical resource that we're talking about, is really the essence of European history here in Santa Barbara. I took my grandsons, these are young guys, a few years ago, just before COVID, walked them through the Presidio. We did it each time they visited here. And when they went home, the youngest grandson had told the rest of the family and his friends that this was Grandpa's other home in Santa Barbara. This was his second house. And I thought, well, okay, with that kind of, if he's smitten with the history of this place, I'm trying to lure them in from the East Coast out here as much as I can. So I'm encouraging the commission to encourage the applicants to continue to work in such a way that the further design and the construction of these residences don't preclude a future access to the historic resource or an ability for the public and my grandsons to reach it in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I don't have any more speaker slips, and we haven't received any written correspondence. So back to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, thank you. All right, to the commission, we'll close public comment, and to the commission for questions. Any questions?
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Drury.
Yeah, what are the plate heights of the 3 stories as proposed?
Can you go to the elevations?
Sure.
You guys need to toggle this.
They're 10'6".
And what is yeah.
Sorry, just
sorry.
to piggyback on that. So all of them are for the 3rd floor?
Well, the dropped ones are not. So it's 10'6" to the flat roof, and then facing the resource is dropped at 1'6". So it's a 9-foot plate, and it goes up and back down.
The 10.6, is that floor to floor, or is that plate height?
That's floor to floor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're trying to get 9-foot ceiling.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair?
Yes,
If I may
Commissioner Gray.
continue. How tall is the existing office building, the neighbor to the what, east, I guess?
It's, is it Control Z?
Just Z.
Just Z.
Yeah.
Here's that taller ridge, and you can see this is 36.6 here. So I'd say it's, roughly 40.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, could we look at the, I think it was, you said it was east view from somewhere near De La Guerra. It was maybe slide 30. It was in those renderings.
So this has taken about, I wish we had Google, we should get Google Earth when we do this.
Yeah.
So this has taken about halfway into that parking lot, and now it's behind the new multifamily.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're looking at there, at the end of that drive is?
So right here is the proposed new,
Okay.
and then this is, I think this is all now the 800 Santa Barbara Street project.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lenvik?
I have a question, yes. Go back to the third sheet, the topographic site plan, existing conditions. So, those are 1-foot contours?
Yes.
So how, when you show us the garage elevation, and just let me get through here, what I see here is maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 feet grade at the garage doors.
Existing, not proposed, we regrade. It shows, we call that out here on the site plan. This is to be regraded. So this all kind of comes
So
down
you're taking all of that down
a couple feet.
a couple feet, and that means anybody who wants to get into the office building who's handicapped goes out to the sidewalk on the street and then back around to get into the office building. Is that what I see? I mean, I don't see a direct route from the garage, which is now 3 foot down, and the office building finished floor.
Let me explain then the site plan. So this is down, and we call these out. These are retained walls here, about 2-3 feet high. So this is up. This, from this point of grade, is a sloped walk. I'm just hitting around 5% right now. So I may have to go to ramp, but I'm right there. So that is a sloped walk up. This is at about 50. The existing steps are at 52. So we're right now meeting all of the accessibility.
Additional questions?
No, I question it, what it's going to look like when we get through, but I have no other questions.
That's a bigger question. Other questions from the commissioners?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
I
Vice
see
Chair.
you have a tab, old plans. Is that the last version that we reviewed?
I don't know, is that what that is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
That's what
because it would be useful to see what the elevation or the rendering from Canon Perdido looked like in the old plans compared to the new.
Sorry.
Meaning just the previous one, not the
previous one,
condo.
not the
Okay.
condos.
That's the old.
Yeah.
'Cause this is the first, second concept.
This is the first one this is the one you reviewed
In May.
in May.
But do you have the perspective, the rendering from the street, which kind of shows the office building and? Yeah, there we go.
Mhm.
Okay.
So you can see we've eliminated all that fourth story and kind of changed up the dynamics of that elevation. And again, this is, I don't know, 200 feet back, 150 feet back.
And then, what is the change in the distance between the existing office building and the AUD?
Here, this corner right here was 7 feet here. Yeah, and just to be clear, you see how this comes out? That the upper floor sticks out and then the lower floor goes in, so that's to the upper, just to be very clear.
It's an overhang.
It's an overhang, yeah. So here, it's about 12 feet. So it's-
Vice,
Yeah.
pardon my interruption, Vice Chair House, can you speak into your microphone
Oh,
for everybody to
I
hear?
have it on, but not pointed at me.
Right, so that's why I tagged it. It looks a little funny, like I'm tagging the middle of the sidewalk, but that's the overhang.
Okay. Thank you.
I have another
Right,
question,
other
Mr.
question,
Chair.
Commissioner Drury?
Yes, where is the adorable?
Gate?
It's adorable.
I'd like to know.
It's adorable wall and gate.
Yes, this is an
There it
adorable
is.
wall and an adorable gate. I don't-
Adorable. Who doesn't like walking through
Here we
these?
go.
And, it's not been developed, but I,
Commissioner Lemon thinks it's adorable as well.
okay.
Thank you.
All right. Other question, can you go to the sections, or sections? I'm just trying to understand fully the various conditions. Yeah, okay.
I think
If
this
you could
is
zoom
what
in
you're
there.
looking for.
Perfect,
Yeah.
okay. So floor to floor there, you have 10'6". Okay, so it's probably about a 9 and change ceiling.
That's right.
Okay, and then the next one up is the same, yeah. And then the last one is the one, and it goes, so that plate is
That plate's, I dropped it to 9.
Yeah, okay.
And then I obviously have to pick that back up
Got it.
again on this side, which it's, what I liked about that when I did it is the asymmetry, and it became this kind of rustic feeling kind of building.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Just want to understand that. Okay, Commissioner Uli?
I had a question about the protection of the Presidio resource and whether or not the applicant team has considered marking out an easement or property transfer to the trust so that they can manage that resource and not be part of the project.
We haven't had that discussion yet.
I would encourage you to do that.
We heard that before.
That didn't sound like a question.
Well, she did
Well,
answer.
you-
the question.
I did answer.
All right.
We haven't done it.
Mr. Chair,
Vice Chair House.
could we see the roof plan again? Okay, so one of, this stairwell to the upper left there, that's what's adjacent to your stone entry element, okay?
Not to the cute one, to the other one.
Right.
Yeah.
Adorable. sorry.
Adorable. Get the right architectural terminology.
Is the overall height of that stair tower taller than it needs to be?
No.
I mean, I can understand an elevator shaft needing.
You know, we can always refine it, but it's probably like an 8-foot plate. I might be able to drop that a foot, really pressure that down to 7 feet. Yeah. And then this can always get, refined. It's just at this early stage, I just want
Right.
to make sure there's clearance in the steps going down.
All right. Any other questions? I'll throw one more out there, looking at this elevation. Right there. On the gable on the right, was there any thought of doing a hip or anything else? I know you changed from, previous one was the flat parapet on the left and then a hip on the right. Was there other studies you did on that? And
I'd be open to a hip. I haven't been doing gables lately, honestly, so I did a gable.
You're hip to a hip?
But I'd be hip to a hip, yeah.
all right. Any other questions?
Yes, Mr.
Yeah,
Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I had the same,
Commissioner Butler?
yes, actually, we were, anyway.
Probably
There's
gonna
a
say the
question
same
about
thing.
that. And that whole structure, so it's recessed in, how deep is that? I guess my first, just how far, yeah.
Here you can see the slot.
So that's, okay.
That's, I think, 15 feet.
15
Maybe
feet.
10 to 15 feet, I'm not sure exactly.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair House?
Following up on I guess it was the section we were looking at that showed the overall height on the elevation facing Santa Barbara Street. I'm just wondering how that compares to what the condos were.
It's probably comparable. Are you talking about this one?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, it's probably comparable. My memory is those were 10-foot, 6-foot floors as well, and it was a similar. If anything, it's going to be lower because that one it's very similar, or maybe lower. I'm not sure.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Let's go into discussion and comments. Or both.
Mr.
and.
Chair.
Commissioner Jordan.
I'll keep my comments short this time, since we can't discuss parking. I'm sure the staff will appreciate that. I simply want to repeat my comment from the previous time, which has been brought up, to work with the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation. The reason to protect and preserve that corner is so that people can have access to it and use it to learn about the history of the city and of the Presidio. So it's an encouragement for you to continue to work with the trust.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Jordan. Who's next? Commissioner Lenvick?
I want to thank the Attorney's Office for being here.
And now I don't have to tell you to shut up.
Well, she's going to when I get through here, I'm sure.
Right.
I'd like you to go to the elevation from Canaperdito Street.
The rendering or the
No,
elevation?
the exterior elevations, the two-dimensional elevations. Yeah. I am concerned, right there, yeah, right there is good. I'm concerned that what we see from Canaperdito Street as we walk by is we see a relatively brutal piece of architecture, what you call a garage and a trash enclosure. And one of the things that the city of Santa Barbara really works hard at is trying to have pedestrian-friendly architecture on the street. And I don't see either the street elevation or the garage door elevation as being something I want to walk by Canaperdito Street on and look at. I don't know what the solution is. Maybe the parking's got to be located someplace else. I don't know. But I don't find that piece of architecture particularly happy. And I think that the garage doors are going to be open more than closed, and that concerns me.
No, they won't be. They can't be.
They can't be.
No.
So a lot of exchange of people in the office building, up and down. The garage doors are open as much as they're closed. I mean, if an allowed use in the office building is a medical office, that's short term. People come and go. How do you not have those doors open and down all the time?
Is that
sounds
a
like a
question?
question.
That's a question, yeah.
We'll go to questions.
With working with staff, we worked through the PRT and all the issues around these mechanical lift systems, and this will be conditioned that they cannot, for a change, no change of use, that would
I understand
not
that.
be allowed.
When you look at the parking requirements,
I've looked at them.
that, I mean, the city's staff is going to say, what's happening in these offices that are going to require, that are going to be okay for this mechanical lift system versus parking in a parking lot and walking into the office? And so what I see here is I see a piece of architecture fronting the property, which is the garage and the trash enclosure, which to me are unacceptable from the standpoint of meeting the city's design guidelines.
They're unchanged from the condo version that this commission supported.
Although
no more than you.
I don't want to get into
no more than you are here.
No back and forth.
Yeah, you haven't got the condo deal here. You got this deal here, and this deal to me is unacceptable. And the condo version may have been unacceptable once we got down to, to picking it apart.
But we're not going.
But we're not going to pick it apart. No.
Right. No. We'll go there, but we're not going to go back to the condo.
Well, I don't find those two architectural elements on the street front, on the sidewalk street frontage, acceptable to, and anyway acceptable to Santa Barbara's design requirements.
Okay. All right. Vice Chair House.
This raises some questions in my mind. So in the elevation of the garage, what is the height to the top of the arches? I mean, are those just 7-foot doors, or they need to be something taller? And also, it would raise the question, there's kind of a shadow line, so is it the lower rectangular portion that opens and the arch infill is fixed, or?
Correct. So this is 7 feet, and then this is a fixed panel element to create that arch shape. This panel goes up and goes down.
Which panel goes,
This-
okay.
this panel.
The lower panel
That lower
goes up
panel.
vertically.
Exactly.
Okay. I see.
And I worked very hard with the lift system to be able to do this in wood clad so that it could be a traditional looking door.
Uh-huh. And could we look at the rendering from Canaperdito again? Are we in questions or comments?
We're in comments, so we keep going back and forth.
Yeah,
Then we got into arguments.
Yeah. My sense, when I look at this rendering, is rather pleasing and inviting to wander in there. So I think the landscaping has a lot to do with it. I think the development of the concept has a lot to do with it, because you know, there are elements here that just definitely need a lot of refinement, but I don't feel as harshly about the garage and the trash enclosure as Commissioner Lenvik. There's always a concern about garage doors, though, that, you know, can get pretty beat up, so, you know, it's a concern.
I'd like to see I'd like to see the view from the other direction, walking from west to east.
That would be important to see that. My first impression when I downloaded these plans and studied them was I wondered, well, what's changed? So my initial impression was it's still big and massive. And I'd hate to feel that, you know, if I was visiting the Presidio, I'm in a sinkhole of tall buildings that surround this historic area, you know, that as more and more buildings get built in around it. And I would rather it be more transitional and transition in height from, you know, the existing buildings along Santa Barbara Street. Having said that, though, I at least, I think, gave pretty good buy-in on the condo project, and you know, I think it was resolved in my mind that it was had that mass, bulk, and scale, and I think that with the explanation that you've given today and showing the view of what we looked at the very last time, it has come down quite a bit. So it's definitely going in the direction of being more acceptable. If we go back to that
And
first.
actually, while you're on here, because
Okay.
to tie into that same question and comments and discussion, there you have a view. Can we go to the view that you're looking right up the entrance to the parking? Because I think that.
You mean just zoom in on
Yeah,
that?
Yeah, zoom in on that one, because I think that's also part of what Commissioner
That's
Lenvik had just
There's
mentioned.
another view.
Yeah, so, and I think this rendering is also, because it's over a point cloud of existing, it looks like you have a nice little lawn that you're mowing on the left-hand side, but.
Yeah, I know.
But that's, but that's the planter of
The
all
goats
the
are
other
munching
stuff. But that, I think, shows part of what Commissioner Lenvik, you had brought up, where you're seeing the trash enclosure on the right, the little right building, and then the garage openings there. So I just wanted to kind of, but I think it doesn't also have the components of the other rendering, which was more fleshed out. So,
Well,
okay.
and actually, this will be sufficient for my other point, is that, you know, when I first looked at this, my eye just stopped at that stair tower, and it just still seemed like something big and looming and massive. And I think the discussion Chair Grumbine had about possibly a hipped roof on that right-hand element goes in the right direction, and anything you can do to that stair tower to soften its appearance, I think, would be a benefit, because it just seems like a very tall looming mass. And then I would comment on the stone element at the entry. I know you know that it needs a lot of development yet. There's something awkward about it, but maybe stone on the lower part of it and stucco up above or something would be a more appropriate solution.
Are you referring to the adorable stone one? Or
No, not the adorable
okay.
one. This is the less than adorable one.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
All right, Commissioner.
this may be a bit premature, but can we go to the west elevation? I think that's the one that faces the little sandwich shop, parking lot there. Yes, well, no, then, so it's the top one.
That's the top one, okay.
Yeah, is that the west? Yeah. There is some poetry in parts of these examples, but this is the one that seems to be the most monolithic. I think it's the one that needs the most poetry, because it's the one that faces a historic resource. I think that needs a good bit of articulation. However, the magic of architecture is done, I would recommend that be studied. It looks sort of institutional. I think it may be the windows, the rhythm of the windows, the big rectangles, but something needs to be more imaginative. Thank you.
All right. Other comments?
I'll make a couple of comments, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Drury or Commissioner Uli?
Yeah, well.
I'm sorry to, I'm sorry to both of you.
Big shoes to fill. Generally, I think it's going in the right direction. I appreciate the loss of the fourth floor. It helps reduce the mass of this building, so I think you're going in the right direction. I agree with some comments of other commissioners. You know, the finessing of things, I think, will get done through the process. On this particular page, the Canon Perdido Street elevation, I think if you included the building and the office building in that view, you would get a truer sense of what's going on. And providing clearer views of west to east, I think, will also help us. You did show that one cloud point, but it's pretty obscured. Maybe move down the street a little bit more, give us a better view of that. But in all, I'm supportive of the project. I think you're going in the right direction.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Uli.
Just very briefly, I would reflect the same comment. I think with some work, this is heading in the right direction, General. Third story versus fourth story, that'll fit in the footprint, et cetera, and given the other elements such as parking that we can't discuss. So
We're not.
I'll leave it at that. I think you're headed in the right direction.
All right. Vice Chair House, did you go?
I did.
All right. Oh, yes, you had a great
weren't
comment.
Mr. Chair.
All right.
I
Commissioner
might ask that when the architect comes back, that they, with their two-dimensional elevations, that they string them out and get the adjoining buildings, adjoining properties, you know, in the elevation as well. That way it'll show us the context. I mean, I look at the Canon Perdido elevation of the garage, and I kind of wonder, well, what's next door, and is that the right height? Should it be 4 feet lower down? I just, you know, if you strung out your exterior elevations and brought in, you know, adjoining parking lot or whatever, it would help us as well, I think.
All right. Good point. All right. Any other comments? All right. Actually, I did want to go to one spot on the site plan where it shows the historic resource. Yeah, can you zoom in? Because you have the line showing the previous example. Okay, yeah, so that red jogging line. So I appreciate that you the red is showing that you have pulled back from the resource on that far corner, but you also pushed forward on this Studio 107. It looks like. See how that
109, 110.
What is that one?
That's 107.
If you look at the bottom right corner,
Right.
that has pushed forward a little bit. I know you've pushed back a lot more, but that's all. I just wanted to kind of make sure that we're noting that as well in it. So I think that ties to the only other comment I had to add, which was to look at trying to finesse things away more in all, not just in all, but in all the pieces. But let me try to summarize the comments. Let's see. So. The one was okay. So for one, in general, I heard multiple times that this is going in the right direction, and there's especially a great appreciation for removal of the fourth floor. We think that's good, and the lowering of the plate heights, and the general lowering of the mass of the building. There still needs to be a lot of finessing, and we'll give some of these instances, but in general, it seems like it's going in the right direction. One comment was to work with the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation and to look at how the community might benefit from the resource or be able to access the resource. So look at ways in which that can happen. Another general comment was, and I agreed with this as well, was I think we need more views from the various places like Santa Barbara Street all the way back and looking from the pedestrian views especially along Santa Barbara and Canon Perdido as part of the study. Another, for next time, thing to see is adjoining elevations of the various properties and parcels to see context of height. There is a concern for coming down Canon Perdido by at least one commissioner, actually multiple commissioners, of seeing the garages, the garages as well as the trash enclosure. And so it's our recommendation to study what can be done with those, and especially with your views and looking at all the landscaping and the other pieces that are actually there as part of your views. As a way of screening those things. And there is concern for seeing open garages. And so all the detailing and other things to screen those will be going in the right direction. Landscape. It was not, since our landscape architect is not here, the landscape looks great.
You like the lawn?
Yeah.
The lawn up front.
The lawn is
Perfectly
great.
manicured.
Get a
It's
little
a lot of
electric
green.
mower for that one. All right, let's see, we talked about views. Okay, so that height transition, I think, I started to catch part of this comment, but this might have been you, Vice Chair House. The transition in height, were you saying from Canon Perdido Street up or into the lot, or were you saying from looking from Santa Barbara Street, the transition, you were concerned about the breaking up the height in some way, or breaking down the height in some way? Or,
Well, I remember talking about the view from Canon Perdido, and I thought there was a nice kind of entry sequence into the property. From Santa Barbara Street, I'm not sure I remember.
okay, well, I wasn't sure where it was that you were talking about stepping
But
from.
I don't think I was talking about stepping something, I don't know.
Okay, never mind, strike that one. Okay. Okay, so for the stair tower, if you can go to the elevations, just so we can call it out.
Be the north elevation.
Yeah, okay, so on the, and I guess you could see it most on the,
Oh, you want to see
on
the
the,
other one? Yeah.
on that one, yeah. So the north elevation, so the north elevation, to minimize the stair tower up to the roof, and look at minimizing it in all ways, mass bulk scale, and the visual impact. As well, to look at, restudy the gable with a potential hip or other element. And there's at least some concern with the depth of the wall pushback between the gable and the hip, the three-story elements. So to continue to study that. The stone entry element was also, seems still a little awkward, and so to study that as well, possibly combining stone and plaster. Let's see. On the west elevation, if we can go to the west elevation. At least one commissioner, and I'll say at least a couple commissioners, because I agree. So for the west elevation, it seems to be too massive, and so to break it up in some way, to articulate it, and it seems to be one large consistent height now. So break up those masses. Let's see. We talked about views. We talked about elevations. One more. I would say one more detail. This is not. It's getting into the details, but the Mirador. Maybe look at when you're studying that elevation on whatever that was, the west elevation. Maybe look at another element as well. I know you're a north elevation. Yeah, I know that there's a Mirador on the opposite side, but maybe play off it a little bit different. And so look at another potential element there, or a different element. Let's see. Any other comments that I missed?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
unless I misunderstood, I think Mr. Imwali suggested the possibility of, since we've gained 5 feet between the AUD and the office building, perhaps shifting the building away from the resource a foot or so, which I would support.
Okay.
It doesn't accomplish the task of a paseo or anything like that to provide access, but any little bit helps.
To go closer to the commercial building.
Yes.
Yep, okay, so to add that, a comment as well, and to look at shifting the mass away from the historic resource. And maybe as part of that study as well, when you're looking at all the elevations, we'll get a little more information about how those buildings feel, adjacent to each other. Okay, and anything else? That good with everyone? All right. So this is just for comments only, so there are the comments, and they're less than we'll have to read back next time. But the last time was good.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
It was good to see you all.
All right.
Sorry, I can't stay for the next one.
Oh,
I wish
come
I could,
on,
but-
come on. We're just getting
We're
warmed up.
both next.
Parking.
Then we can
I
talk
guess
about
you guys
parking.
speak-
She didn't even get to say anything.
Yeah.
I know. So
That's probably a good thing.
That's right.
Wish I had that effect.
All right. Why don't we take a quick 5-minute break? And then we'll go on to, let's see, it's item 4. Oh, no, item 3. Item 3.
So did Commissioner
Okay. Calling back to order Historic Landmarks Commission, June 8th, 2022. So we are moving on to item 3. This is pre-application consultation review, 400 West Correa Street. The project site is located within the EPV. The project consists of demolition of the existing parking lot and removal of 15 mature on-site Tipuana tipu trees and the construction of a 3- and 4-story residential structure with 63 rental units. Parking for the residents would be provided in a combination of surface lot and garage parking. The apartments are proposed as 100% rent-controlled moderate and middle income affordable apartments operated by the Housing Authority of the City of Santa Barbara. Modifications are requested for the proposed density and exceeding the 45-foot height limit. This is a one-time pre-application review, round 2. No final appealable action will take place at this meeting. Project compatibility findings would be required for project design approval. The project was last reviewed April 13th, 2022. So with that, welcome. And we'll have comments from staff, and then we'll go through the minutes from the last meeting, and then we'll go from there.
All right, thank you, Chair Grumbine. The project is back for a second one-time concept review. You have seen it before. So at this time, we're just looking for you to comment on broad issues such as site planning, general architectural style, and the project's relationship to its site and neighborhood. And Megan Arciniega is also here. She's the case planner on the project, and she has some comments for you as well, I believe.
All right.
Hello, Chair Grumbine, Commissioners. My name is Megan Arciniega. I'm the project planner on this. We've done a pre-application for this site. They have yet to submit their formal application. We're looking again just for general comments on site design and layout primarily. In response to the previous comments, if you have other questions of the planning side or zoning application, let me know.
All right, thank you. All right, so welcome. So we have there we go. Okay, our comments from last time. All right, so the commission understands the need for affordable housing in Santa Barbara and is very encouraging of the project in general. Regarding this particular project at this location, the commission is concerned with the size, bulk, and scale of the project, especially regarding the Castillo Street elevation and the way in which it interacts with the 1- and 2-story houses beyond. In general, the commission is supportive of larger massing on the corner, especially on Carrillo Street, and smaller massing and greater setbacks on Castillo Street. One potential way to get more setbacks is to look at the interior courtyard as a possibility for moving portions of the building. Most commissioners were not convinced that the internal courtyard adds a lot to the project, and it may be helpful to remove portions of the courtyard. The architecture is designed as designed along Castillo Street and Carrillo Street, and the breaking up of the massing and articulation is preferable to the elevations along the freeway side, as well as the side facing the single-family neighborhood. There is a concern regarding the 45-foot height element, and that while this particular execution of the element is supportable by most commissioners, the overall height of the project needs to be reduced. There is an understanding that this is a design element and it needs to be considered in that context. All right. So, keeps going. It's not as long as the last one. All right. At the next review, provide views coming down Carrillo Street and leaving Santa Barbara, as well as an aerial view around the building so the commission can understand the bird's eye view and design. Provide the approximate sizes of the trees and the renderings using Google Earth. The commission finds the planting plan and proposal to remove the Tipuano tipu trees acceptable. One commissioner is not fond of the eyebrows of tile formed over the roof elements. All right, so with that, if you could introduce yourselves and 15 minutes to present.
Okay, great. Chair Grumbine and commission members, Rob Fredericks. I'm the Executive Director of the Housing Authority of the City of Santa Barbara. And we're happy to be back today for another concept review to get your additional feedback. We're really excited to get this started. The city very much is in need of housing that's affordable to moderate income workforce, and that's what this development is all about. As was mentioned, all units will be deed restricted and controlled by the Housing Authority. And based on what your comments were at the last first concept review. I'm excited for Christine to go through some of the changes that we've made in response to those. We think we listened to you well, and hopefully you'll see that as well. So thank you, and we appreciate your time today.
Great, thank you. Chair Grumbine and Commissioners, Christine Perron with the Cornell Collective. I'm the architect for the project, and I'm also here joined with Courtney Miller, Courtney Jane Miller, landscape architect. So, thank you very much, and I'm going to start with the site plan, and we had a lot of really great comments from the commissioners last time, and we've addressed those. One thing I want to talk about is a bit the site planning. And I know there were comments to study the courtyard as an option to eliminate the courtyard or reduce some of it. And Courtney is going to be speaking to that. But we do believe it's an important amenity for the people living here. And she has examples showing why courtyards of this scale can be very successful. We also had members from the Housing Authority, some of the facilities managers say that oftentimes the shadowed courtyards are some of the most popular for the residents. So I think that we should I hope that the commission can stay open to that concept. We believe it's important for the livability of this project. So one thing I want to talk about is just give a little bit more information here than I did the last time. And you see the footprints of the adjacent buildings. There's the gas station. The boxy two-story is right here. And here's where you get into that one-story multifamily. That's all connected. That's one project. And I just really want to review the relationship of our building to these buildings and where the single-family one-story really kind of starts. And so you can see, there's the gas station, it's all commercial, and that's really halfway through the site on our side. We have the two-story that's close to the street. We actually are providing a much more significant setback than that. And it's only at this point where we have a one-story element, that's this right here, relative to the one-story of the start of the kind of one-story single-family neighborhood. So it's really a very minor overlap as we transition into that single-family neighborhood, and we completely agree with you and identified it as important to relate to that in this design. That is why, early on, we actually designed out to this setback and built more housing. And in meeting with the neighbors, we've had a couple of different neighborhood outreach meetings. That was a concern. So we pulled back 50 feet from that side yard. We've kept the Tippewanas there to keep that buffer and that relationship. And I do want to talk a little bit about the one story here adjacent to it is a commercial use. And if you see this, just give you a better context. There's the one-story bungalow, and it's commercial, so it's all a parking lot behind. And here's a kind of a boxy two-story apartment, and here's the channelized creek. So I just wanted to kind of give you a better context of what this looks like. And I just want to kind of go back to that is way too much. Walk through the setbacks again. We believe these setbacks are already quite generous. Let me zoom in here a little bit more. We are 13 feet back from the sidewalk to open patios, and this is a one-story element. This is a one-story element. So we have a one-story within 6 feet 6 of the back of sidewalk. So we feel like we're already providing generous, over 19 feet to where the three-story habitable space starts. And there was actually a concern voiced by the Housing Authority because of the facilities that they maintain and their experience that doing really large setbacks that I think was implied by this commission becomes a bit of can be an attractive nuisance on their side for how those get maintained, how they get used. And so there's a real balancing act about these setbacks and what's appropriate. And so we felt that these were already quite significant, and we've maintained them. I'm just going to skip right to the elevations here. We can, if you have questions, I'm happy to review the floor plans. So here's the Castillo Street, and we did respond to your comment about, really trying to erode that corner, get some more two-story. So if you remember before, this was a solid three-story block. That's that one-story element. So we dropped that and created a two-story, again, a deck space, and then a much smaller three-story element, and then this three-story element much further back. And here's the, this is that piece that's significantly back. This is 13 feet back. Oops, where's the pan? There it is. And you can see some of the design changes that have happened. We've had more parapet roofs, so we introduced more red tile roofs, more rafter tails. And even though it does bring the architecture a bit forward, we did think it was nice to introduce these upper level balconies on some of these, not everywhere, but the color, the texture, the material we thought was nice to bring forward. It created shadow lines and did create some more outdoor living space. Shoot. I don't want to do that. Where's my pan? Sorry, I was doing well on the last one.
I think space bar.
Space. Okay, let me go back. And there was concern about this fourth-story element that we had pulled forward. We pushed that back about 15 feet and brought the three-story roof line across. Kind of studied the stair tower a little bit as well. And then there was concern about this roof deck. What we did is we kind of reorganized the part so it's L-shaped wrapping deck, so it feels much more open and much more of a sense of a three-story deck on top of a two-story structure. And here's Castillo Street. The massing's about the same. Again, the deck is a little bit more open, and you can just see we did add more roof tile and some more kind of open, kind of pierce work. I think that's stacked. That's stacked roof tile, kind of detail elements on this building.
May I ask a question? Is that what we're looking at along Carrillo Street?
That's Carrillo Street.
Okay, thank you.
And this is the side facing the freeway, and we responded to the concerns about this needing the same level of kind of articulation and ups and downs, ins and outs that the other elevations had. So here you see we eroded out a whole corner here and brought that down to a three-story as we, again, address the neighborhood to the north of us. And we also notched out a significant amount here in the middle. That's back about 13 feet. With a three-story roof element. And this was the comment from that fourth-story element facing Castillo, that the commission was supportive, not in the context of the overall height, but exceeding it for design purposes. And we don't need to do that on the front any longer. It was no longer reading. But here we do want to exceed a little bit with this tile roof just to kind of help with that articulation on this elevation. And the north elevation, again, you see we've dropped that, it's the two-story, so we go from a 1 to a 2 to a 3. We pushed that that four-story element back. It had been a bit of a cantilever, so now that's been pushed back a couple feet. And here's this section that we've also kind of pushed back, so it's more of a three-story with the four-story pushed back about 30 feet. And the request was for views going, leaving Santa Barbara. Who would ever do that? So here we are from the, here we are at the garage, gas station. And here's that corner element, the deck, that fourth floor is really kind of tucked back in there. And I think you saw this on the cover sheet, the corner elevation. And starting to move past, again, this is where you start to see, you can get glimpses back down that parking lot. the 4-story, but mainly this reads as a 3-story building. And then again, looking back, this is, you can see alluded to here is the bridge railing. And so this is just looking back right about at the on-ramp and how that's hidden by the Tipuana trees. And before I continue on the next page, but I don't want to forget going back. This is on Castillo Street, showing the change to the, that there's that entry into the parking lot, the adjacent bungalow, and here's that, how we've kind of dropped that down to 2-story, or significant 1-story, and how that's been adjusted. Sorry, Courtney, hope we could get a couple extra minutes.
Our landscape architect's not here, so.
Sorry. So this was done, let me go up. Just as a comparison study. So here you can see the existing on-ramp, that guardrail, this palm, and our trees right here, the Tipuanas. And so that's been mapped here so that you could see here's the edge of the on-ramp, that guardrail, that palm, and here's the creek. So here you can get a sense of this represents, even with the loss of some of the Tipuana trees, what this is going to look like and feel like. You get a glimpse of the building. And then just for clarity, we did it as a wireframe so that you could see the building itself with the trees wireframed in. And then this is farther up the on-ramp, looking back. Hopefully you're not the driver. Yeah. And here you can kind of see there's that parking lot that's to the
wrong way.
The adjacent parking lot are Tipuanas, and that's that kind of that 2-story apartment building that's what we keyed to when we did this. So here's, we kind of modeled that and keyed to it. The on-ramp trees are building back there. And again, the wireframe trees, so you get a sense of the building. And I think that now with the 3s and the 4s, and I think you can kind of start to see the shadow play that's happening with the design. And I think that is my presentation. Sorry, Courtney.
You can, yeah. Roll it over.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys can have a couple more minutes.
Thank you. Courtney Miller, CJMLA. So let me find my plans here. Where's the zoomy thing? Is it Control Z or just Z? Okay, there we go. I do this every day, but. Okay, so as Christine mentioned, we looked really closely at the design of this interior space. We looked at other buildings, both within our portfolio and around the EPV. And we feel that, in general, keeping this in the design is critical to the livability of this building. The Housing Authority is an organization that is very much about community. And when we've toured their other properties, talked to the building managers, these spaces are important. This is how people who live in this building get to know one another and feel grounded and connected in their community. So given that, we'd like to keep it. And as I said, we looked at a lot of other buildings. So, oops, I did it again. There we go. We have some images. Why is it doing that? Down at the bottom of the page. I think this one's a little glitchy. So I'm sure you're all familiar with this project, 800 Santa Barbara Street, one of ours. Well, this is before we finished construction. So no, this is a fountain. There's no plants yet. But this is a similar scaled space. 20 feet from wall to wall. And under the bridge here, it's 10 feet. So just keep that in mind. And then this is another of the Housing Authority properties, which very different in its landscaping, but similarly scaled space. It has the open corridors up above, which is very similar to the project that we were presenting today. And then this is another image just to kind of show, you know, more of the design intent and how these spaces of these shapes can be successful. So then I'll show you again the courtyard and just kind of walk you through. Again, the idea is that these are flexible spaces. So this is something we do with a lot of our work. Movable furniture, intentionally intimate, smaller spaces where someone could, you know, have a conversation with one other person. Couple of chairs, little planter. And then you can see the dimensions here. So between the corridors, almost 12 feet here, and then 26 from building wall to building wall. The space in the middle, 20 feet. So similar to that, you know, the first project I showed the image of below. And then 26 from building wall to building wall. And then moving up to the north side, 24 and change from here to here. And then I think it's 38 from wall to wall. The other change that we did make is, you know, subtly shifted around some of the planters here, but we've added this community room here. So this is fully open. I think is it an arched opening? And we thought it'd be fun to have a game room or something a little bit more active in there. So the other thing I'll say is that this is another opportunity for us to include more canopy trees in this space that help with the pollutant removal and obviously the creation of blue squares all over the plan. But again, another critical need on this particular property is including new leafy trees that can help pull the pollutants out of the air. So, you know, we obviously have that with the existing canopy along the west and north sides of the property, but we need to be doing that, you know, everywhere else, every nook and cranny that we can find. So this courtyard is really important for that as well. Other than that, I think we haven't made any more changes to the design, so look forward to your feedback.
All right. So if that concludes your presentation, we'll go on to public comment. Any member of the public wishing to comment on this item, please, if you're in person, fill out a speaker slip. Otherwise, we'll go, but for now, we'll go to online comment, virtual.
Yes, thank you, Chair Grumbine and Commissioners. So at this time, if any member of the public joining by Zoom would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand to indicate that you would like to speak, and I will call on you. So it looks like we do have one speaker with their hand raised, Steve Johnson. I'm going to go ahead and send you an unmute request, and you will have 2 minutes to speak.
Hello, I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Thanks for this opportunity to comment. I have a couple of observations. One is there's an issue with parking encroaching into the 25-foot setback from top of bank. That could be addressed by different determination of top of bank using a non-default angle of repose. Another observation is that there's 25 parking spaces that this project does not need. Its sister project, Casa de las Fuentes, Catty Corner, has 42 parking spaces, of which maybe 15 ever get used. For a lower-income project housing, the Housing Authority has the authority to require tenants to not operate or maintain vehicles, and they do so at many of their properties. Eliminate the 25 spaces facing Mission Creek. Move the building to the west. That addresses commissioners' interest in less massing on the Castillo side and would provide a much nicer ground floor space on that Castillo side. Mention One other item that the interior courtyard is probably critically needed for private yard space that meets air quality and noise standards. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I don't see any more hands raised for this item, so I'll move to in-person public comment. I still haven't received any requests to speak, so I'll move to written correspondence, and we did receive 2 letters from Steve Johnson. So with that, I'll turn it over back to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, thank you. All right, and so I'll go to the commission for questions. Questions? Commissioner Jordan? Or
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. It was brought up that greater setback creates the opportunities for potential for public nuisance, and I'm just curious what landscaping is considered for the Castillo side, and can landscaping play a role in addressing the potential, minimizing the potential for a public nuisance?
Thanks for that question. I think absolutely landscape can play a role in addressing that issue, but also requires maintenance. So, there's a trade-off. But we often do that. There are certain plants that are unfriendly, so we can focus on using those. But in general, like I said, it has its drawbacks. So I don't know if Christine would add anything.
I would just, I think I would just return to the notion that, we believe that this is a gracious setback as proposed.
Mm-hmm.
all right. Commissioner Lenvik?
Yes, I have a question. Can you go to the individual unit plans? It appeared to me that,
And can you make sure you're talking to the microphone?
it appeared to me that, and I don't know how many units are facing into the interior courtyard, but in some instances, there are no windows in the unit that faces into it. I guess on that studio at the top, maybe the bathroom window faces into it, but in your examples you showed, there were some significant or good-sized windows that faced into the courtyard. And I'm wondering if we're missing something with this design that you were selling us on the images you showed us, the similar images.
There's a kitchen window, and that's most of the units have a kitchen window that was purposely designed as a kind of eyes-on-the-street approach. So it's nice to sit at your kitchen window. You don't want your bedroom there, ideally, so it's really nice to be able to stand there, look outside. It's a kind of quasi-public experience. You could have the window open when your neighbor goes by, and that's most of the units. And then I think there's one other or 2 others. These are the most typical that have windows, a couple of windows into the living space as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. So you intend to maximize to the extent feasible the windows into that.
Absolutely. That's important.
Yeah. I have a question of the Housing Authority, a curiosity question, if I might. How long does a tenant normally stay in your 1-bedroom or your studio unit?
It can vary by the demographics of
Sure.
the program that we're serving, if they're senior apartments or family apartments. But on average, I'd say 7 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So the Starbucks barista young person is going to stay here for 7 years?
Well, I'm not sure a Starbucks barista at that salary would even be living there. This is for a higher income level, but still rent and price restricted for that little bit higher income level.
Yeah, okay.
So it's like a Pete's Coffee barista.
Well,
Yeah, yeah.
it's, you know, these are small units.
Yes,
And I wonder how long people tolerate living in a small unit. I guess it's a function of pocketbook.
yes.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. Other questions? Vice Chair House?
I'm just curious about the merits of the suggestion of the public speaker about eliminating some parking spaces if typically these types of projects are overparked, and that would give the opportunity, if not shifting the building for more setback on the street, at least it would allow for enlargement of that inner courtyard.
We, certainly, and Skip Szymanski from the Housing Authority can answer this better than I do, but they often are very successful with a much lower parking ratio. We met with the neighbors, though, a couple of times, right? And it was a concern of theirs. And this was one instance where the Housing Authority wants to be good neighbors. And if the neighbors want to see at least a 1-to-1 ratio, then they're going to do that to make sure that they're good neighbors.
Skip Szymanski with the Housing Authority. I could have stayed in my seat. Very well. In short, no, we like having the building back farther from the creek. We like having the number of parking spaces here because this is going to be a little higher income than what we typically provide for. And the people that we've been speaking to that do provide in that income level, a vehicle is more preferred as opposed to our lower income.
All right, thank you. Other questions?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Drury?
Yes, let's see. So is there flood potential?
I don't think so. I think we were out of the floodplain.
She didn't answer that well.
That's correct. We are out of the floodplain in this particular area, yes.
It's pretty deep down in there.
It's pretty deep,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
And it's channelized, so that minimizes the
Right.
potential for flood.
Good, thank you. Is there any idea of maybe saving any of the Tipuanu trees?
We are proposing.
Well, you're saving the ones along the rim, but what about the ones you're going to uproot? Is there an opportunity perhaps to plant them someplace, being mature trees?
Are you asking if we looked at relocating any of the trees? I don't think that would be feasible, given the size and the,
Okay.
the age of the trees.
Okay. Let me think, is there anything else? Oh, yes, so what about freeway noise abatement? That's
Yes.
fairly critical.
Yes, absolutely, and it would be a part of the design of the building, and that usually goes to higher SDC rating windows. It can, depending on the noise, it can go up into the 40s SDC. We haven't done the sound study, but we will do a sound study and make sure that the walls and the windows address that issue.
Good, thank you.
Good. Any other questions? All right, let's go into comments. Comments, this is for comments only. And let's see, and in particular, let's see, so generally speaking, the site planning, the mass bulk scale, relationship to the site, architectural language, let's stay in those general zones just so that we're staying at the higher level. And yeah, so who wants to?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Drury.
Yes, so my understanding is that the buildings are really ranging along Castillo Street, away from the freeway.
Correct.
I think that's critical. Further away from the freeway you can get, the better. So behind those buildings, I mean, I've been looking at the graphic. That's parking and storage. That gray area along the creek where that big lawn is, yes. So all those spaces there they're not domiciles. That's
On the first floor.
On the first floor,
Yeah.
this is surface parking, and then these are parking garages. along here.
Underneath this underneath the.
Right.
okay.
Yes, okay. Yeah, I like the architecture as presented. It seems, considering what we looked at, just the previous item. I think this is a much more adventurous and attractive architecture, the skin anyway. I guess we don't have to say whether, well, I'm in support of it. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Take that stand. Plant the flag.
Yeah.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Drury. Or sorry, Commissioner Uli.
That's the second time.
Commissioner
we've done
Drulli.
that. Should we,
One more
should we
time.
swap chairs or something? I don't know. Here.
Big
Here.
stick.
There you go. At any rate, I'm supportive of the project in general. I think it's going in the right direction. I don't have a strong opinion about whether there should be an interior courtyard or not. And what I think about that, I will trust the professionals working on it to figure that out and bring us responses to our concerns. I'm not worried that the project might be overparked, because there never is enough parking. So if that helps the neighbors feel comfortable, I'm okay with that. But I like generally the direction you're going in, and can support the project.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Butler.
I think the revised design is a significant improvement. I really do. I think bringing down the size of the building, the ceiling height, et cetera, and then the Carrillo Street improvements. I've gone by this, I live in the neighborhood or not too far from it. I remember last time there was some comment about, well, this is a lot of people's first entry into Santa Barbara. And so I thought about that when I looked at of course today it's just trees and a parking lot. So I think it's a significant improvement in the right direction, a strong statement to people coming in, and that may be their first early impression of us. So I think it fits pretty well. Beyond that, the courtyard, I kind of agree with my colleagues that what works best. I don't have an opinion on that. But I would support the process as it's gone so far. It looks good.
Thank you. Commissioner Gordon?
Mr. Chair, I'm generally supportive of what we're seeing here today. I do think it's an improvement. I'm generally supportive of the courtyard. And I also think that going forward, the landscape design will play a big role in making that courtyard work and making the whole project work. So I'm supportive of the direction it's going. It sounds like the Housing Authority has tried to be a good neighbor, and I applaud them for that.
All right. Vice Chair House?
I have nothing to add. I agree with those comments.
Really?
All right, Commissioner Lenvik, say something spicy.
No, I agree with the comments. I wish this building was less and more like the building kitty corner across the street, across Castillo and whatever, which is a two-story building. But knowing where we're going in the community, I think this is they've solved the problem in response to our critique of a prior critique. I think the architecture could be simplified a little bit, maybe a little bit less of the in and out, and less of the up and down, just a little quieter, and I think it would be just fine as well. I think the landscaping can probably deal with a quieter building quite nicely, and I just if you were to go that direction, I would be happy with it as well. But I think it'll be a successful building for the city of Santa Barbara.
All right, thank you. And then I think that's down to me. So can we go to the elevations? I agree with all the comments made so far. The only additional comments I'd add to it are that if you could zoom into the upper elevation, right? Yeah, that's good. So with this, one of the elements that seem a little that seems still to need more work and to get resolved is the I think the stacking of the sort of Monterey double balcony over the arcade, and then mirroring on the other side. I don't think that that's resolved yet. I think the general massing is good, and I think the open air aspect of it is successful in helping the building to not feel massive. But I think those elements still need some work. And then, if possible, as well, the stair getting up to the roof it's a pretty strong tower, and it's a tower against another tower, which is the corner tower. So I think that composition isn't there yet, but with refinement, I think can definitely get there. And then the only other piece that I thought seemed to need more massing work is the other corner where it goes 1, 2, 3, 4 stories. That I see where you're trying to go with it, but that composition seems two stepping stones. It's stepping, it's good, but stepping is better than not stepping. But I think there might be another way of stepping that is worth a study. So, and in perspective, I actually noticed it more than anything. It sort of feels like there's a bite taken out of it, and probably because there was. But I think that can use some more refinement. I don't think it's a lot of refinement, but I think that needs some work of massing. So. Nibble, not a bite. Maybe 2 nibbles. It equals 1 bite, but it's different. So I'll try to give it a shot summarizing. So in addition to those comments of the massing, the different massing ones, which were those caught? It sounded like you were typing them. So okay, I won't re-mention those. But the first, we'll open with the comment of that this is definitely. We appreciate you looking at and addressing our comments from before, and that this is definitely an improved design, especially with having to do with mass, bulk, and scale, and in general is supportable. So some of the additional comments were the keeping the building away from the freeway is appreciated. And regarding the parking, it was applauded for being a good neighbor and being caring about what the other neighbors were caring about and making sure that there's enough parking, even though we're not allowed to say parking.
Don't say that.
Unless we're saying it positively.
It's the P word.
The P word.
It's
That's
the P
right.
word.
I'm going to hear her coming back in. All right. So. Let's see, improvement. Landscape design is going to be very important. We recognize that, and in general is going in the right direction. Considering that our landscape architect is missing from this meeting, we'll withhold any additional comments. Yeah, absent. There was one commissioner noted, and I think perhaps some of my comments would tie to that, and I agree. That there may be some less or more quieter and less joggy moves might be worth looking at. There's a lot of planar jogging, and there might be a quieter solution there.
Can I just get clarification? Is that the west elevation you're referring to, the freeway elevation? Is that the main? I just want to get clarity on that.
Sure, yeah.
I think that's
Yeah,
okay.
it's that. I think it's also the Castile Street elevation. I think the chairman kind of referenced it as well. That just
Understood. I got it. I just wanted to make sure.
maybe a jog less.
Yeah.
Got it.
A blank wall as opposed to a window. Maybe it's kind of thing.
Good.
Whatever.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Some place for a plant to be showcased. Okay, and I think, in terms of the general comments of site plan, I think that, so it seems like the site plan is appropriately sensitive to both the neighborhood and the massing of it seems to be sensitive as well. So the general relationship to the site is found to be supportable, and the architecture language in general and landscape language in general seem to be supportable. So I think any other comments? Oh, and the courtyard. Let's make it as a comment. The courtyard in general is supportable, and now is the majority of the commissioners feel that is an appropriate. It seems that this can be made to be an appropriate for this building and the appropriate size, and we're sure that the landscape architect will make sure that things grow there. so. That's right. Let's see, and that setbacks in general are appropriate as well for the way in which the building steps back from the street. Any other comments? All right, so I guess that's it. Those are our comments. Is everything clear?
Yes, thank you.
Yep. All right, thank you all for all your hard work. All right.
Thank you. This is the way it's supposed to work. Tell your friends and neighbors.
That's right. All right. Thank you all. All right, any other discussion or anything else before we close?
No,
All right.
that-
In that case, our meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, sir.